Day getting a win, a draw the other evening. I was watching it on RT as well. It took a last second point from Ryan O'Donoghue. And actually, there was a couple of last second heroes over the weekend. Another one, of course, would have been Paddy McBrearty. Brilliant final point. Some people I see were saying that he should never have been able to get in untracked into that position to fire over the winner. But I just thought it was a good give and go, and he ended up popping over the shot for a finish. Were you impressed by what you saw from Mayo?
Well, I didn't think it was maybe as different as had been built up that it would be completely different, that there would be maybe a kicking game. There wouldn't be, it wouldn't be, we all know Mayo from recent years, how athletic they are, how, they carry the ball through the tackle the whole time and attacking waves or whatever. And I don't know if people were expecting that when Kevin McStay came in, there was going to be this glorious kicking game. I don't know how you expect to see that in January, really, as well. But it was much of the same from Mayo. But the same faces weren't there, and I think that was the big thing. Don't think there was any player in the starting 15 predating, 2014 when James Horn's era there, when it was they were beaten in the final in 13, they were beaten in that semi-final replay in 14, they were beaten in 15 in the semi-final, they were beaten in the final in 16 and 17. And there was none of those players. Aidan O'Shea came off the bench. Killian O'Connor came off the bench, got a lovely score off his left, actually. But, none of those faces. It was kind of new faces. You had Colin Reap in goals. You had Bob Toohey up front making his debut, and it was quite impressed by him as well. And there was a lot of new faces on their side. And then you compare it to the Galway side, like it was mostly familiar faces from a Galway side. I think it was 11 of last year's All-Ireland final winning team. Great to see Peter Cook back involved as well. Massive to have players like that. I think their biggest failure last year was probably not having maybe been able to go 18th player, the 19th player, the 20th player, being able to go really deep into your squad and having lads that can really maybe change games. And that was particularly noticeable in the final. But I just love from Kevin McStay's point of view, I just thought it was quite even innocent after in the post-match interview. Like, he didn't hide how happy he was to get a draw. There was no cliches. Maybe it's because he's coming from being a pundit and he knows maybe what's kind of wanted. But I just saw, general excitement, and even McHale Park was covered in supporters at the end of the game. And did you see the aerial shots before the game and even after the game? They were unbelievable, and it just looked like, it's probably something we'll get into, like, venues were wedged over the weekend. Like, wedged. Like, I couldn't believe how many people I saw. I think the figure was only about 17,000 in Croke Park the other night. But I didn't probably expect even 17,000 to be there on Saturday night. But there's a big crowd there. There's a massive crowd in McHale Park and several other venues around the country. The thirst and hunger for it is definitely there. But to the original question, did I see much different in Mayo? Probably not. But we saw a lot of new personnel and maybe not relying on the old faces as much.
Yeah, TB Street said, is there an OurGame mini code for the fantasy hurling lads? There is. I tweeted it out and probably about 4 or 5 days ago. So if you can just go at Shay and Saint and scroll down, you will definitely find it there. Grodogo Gracon says, left out Jamie Malone for last second heroics. Yeah, that was a brilliant winner for Clare as well. Yeah, I looked at that Mayo team and it is so changed. Like, it really, really is changed. And McStay is going to have to do that. Now, he probably didn't have the likes of a Lee Keegan to come up and kick scores. Owen McLaughlin came up and, he was in Lee Keegan territory and he skewed one wide at one stage. Aidan Orme, he's obviously a good footballer. I'd love to see him drive forward with the ball a little bit more often. So it tends to turn backwards with it. Jordan Flynn, I think, is growing more and more into it. Like, Ryan O'Donoghue, I think, can become... Like, he's obviously got so much talent, but he probably does need to use the ball a little bit more smartly at times. But he is obviously a very good footballer. And Matty Ruane, I mean, what a beast he is around the middle of the field. And also, like, Aidan O'Shea coming off the bench, Owen McLaughlin, obviously, I've mentioned, having Killian O'Connor to come off the bench, Kevin McLaughlin. So, like, would you imagine those lads are going to stay on the bench and coming on? Or are we going to see them eventually push their way back into the team? I wouldn't be entirely sure to see them. I wouldn't be entirely sure if they'd start.
Yeah, kind of hard to know because I don't like using the word project, but it is a new project. How many years are if just say McStay, I think it was a 3-year contract he signed with. There's nothing signed in the GA. What am I saying? It's a 3-year deal or whatever. But like, will Aidan O'Shea still be there at the end of that term? Or, you know what I mean? I think he's trying to bring in faces now that he's going to build his kind of project around, shall we say. So I think he'll be trying to get, particularly during the league, be trying to get as many of these young guys, get as much experience as possible. I think that's why getting a draw the other day was, if they'd been beaten by a point, not to say that the balloon would have been deflated at all, but it just makes such a difference to get a point, particularly against obviously one of the strongest teams in Division 1. There's a couple of things. You mentioned Aidan Orme there. Like, that was a bit of a mismatch under that high ball.
With Matthew Tierney, yeah. Ending up in his own square. Now, to be fair, I think the goalkeeper, Colin Reap, should be cleaning house there. I mean, you have a chance, you're facing the ball. I think you have to absolutely clean house. It reminded me...
I don't like keepers leaving the line, but
but it was 6 yards. It was 5 or 6 yards out. Like,
it was the wrong side. You just need to get a touch on it, and that was a nice little mismatch I would created by Galway. From a Galway point of view as well, like that ball had to be held on to at the end. Like, Joe McQuillan's literally just waiting to blow the whistle, and probably maybe a bit of an experience. The ball is kicked away. Ryan O'Donoghue kicks it back over the bar, and they get a leveler. But I'd say that, they might need to be looking at, like, even O'Shea coming in. I was surprised. I thought surely coming into the edge of the square and they're going to try and manufacture a couple of scores, but he was out kind of foraging out around the middle of the field. Like, I think potentially as an impact player for 15-20 minutes, O'Shea at the edge of the square, maybe coming out the odd time, but I would like to see...
Which square? Full back or full forward?
Full forward now, it would have been, yeah, because I don't think they have that. They don't really have a player like that with that sort of physical force. Obviously, James Carr, who we'll talk about, got like one of the goals of the season at the end of January, like, and he did something similar a few years ago when they played in that qualifier game. But that was an absolute belter of a goal, a class goal, and I loved the atmosphere even around McHale Park the other night. It was just, I don't know if it's because we've been starved of inter-county action. Like this is obviously the first weekend of the league. 6 months since competitive football game was last played, like really competitive league or championship, and there's a massive appetite there for it in McHale Park. Yeah, it was humming from start to finish the other night, and they got the perfect finale to what the vast majority of them came for, and that was a Mayo result.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to top that James Carr goal for the rest of the year. It was absolutely incredible. It's the sort of thing that people generally only try at the start of training sessions. And
you definitely, at this time of the year as well, like, it's just not something you'd normally see at this time of the year, and players generally wouldn't try it because it's just, things are difficult, conditions are tougher. When the ground hardens, it's much easier maybe to take something like that on. But and that, I think that just energized everyone really, really early in the game.
Yeah, you mentioned there about the 3 years that McStay has and whether he'll be kind of concentrating on the younger players. Cillian O'Connor will be 31 during the summer. Aidan O'Shea will be 33. Now, they definitely still have something to offer, but it is one of those things where age-wise, they're kind of at that tricky one where you don't know, do you stick with them or do you move on from them in the GA? I mean, in professional sports, generally now you can keep lads going till they're 36, 37 in a lot of cases because of the modern S&C and conditioning and all that kind of stuff, but not really the same in GA when you have a full-time job as well. McStay said afterwards, we had a lot of young lads out against quite an experienced opposition, and they all stood up to their full height. No one went hiding, everyone looking for the ball, everyone trying hard to do the right thing. By the way,